welcome to the dungeon with Harlan and Andrew.
Hi, hello! We are unmuted. We are here with another episode of The Dungeon. I'm Harlan Kelly.
I'm Andrew Jorphdan.
And today we have a guest like we do every week. And this week is, some of you may know, is Jordan. Thanks for joining us, Jordan.
Yes. You're welcome. Hello, I'm Jordan.
The amazing YouTuber. You make incredible lore videos. And,
thank you.
Yeah, I'm a big fan. And also a guest on Better Than Heroes.
Yeah, that was a fun game. That was a lot of fun.
Yeah, that was.
Thanks for doing it.
Yeah.
Because we totally subverted most of your fights, I think.
Yeah.
Which was
Yeah.
I mean,
let's put it to sleep. Are we faster than a sun dinosaur? I think we are. We should just go.
I mean, it doesn't get much more
The old hypnotic
D&D
pattern
than just running around bad guys. So
Yeah.
But I couldn't help but ask you to come back on and hang out with us because we didn't get to dig in too much. So thank you for joining us on our show where we talk about running the game. And we've been kind of starting people off across the board with the same question. So we'll just ask it of you too. How did you get into tabletop role-playing games? How did it start for you?
I grew up playing like RPGs on video games, and I loved the Final Fantasy franchise, and I played Neverwinter Nights and Baldur's Gate and stuff. So I think I knew D&D, but it was always that weird, like, that's a little too nerdy kind of thing. Like I don't know, for some reason I always associated it with LARPing, but even now I'm like, if you want to LARP, have fun. Like, I don't know, it doesn't feel weird to me anymore. But but as an impressionable like middle schooler, you're kind of like, eh. It was not until I was like 30 years old. And I was in a play, and because I do a lot of theater, and one of my new friends that was in the play with me, we were talking about stuff, and he's like, "Have you ever played D&D?" And I was like, "No." And he's just like, "You would really like it. Like, you would really like it." And I was like, "Really? Like, I've never. Okay, like we should try it." And so he invited me over and a bunch of the other cast members, and we played AD&D second edition. And this was in like 2013, 2014. And I was like a gnome mage or something. I didn't really know what was going on. Thaco confused the hell out of me because I'm like, we're rolling under? Like, what? And then I was also really confused because I'm like, I hear there's a 4th edition D&D out. Why are we playing this? Like, why aren't you playing the latest one? Like, thinking like it's a patch for software, and it is not that.
Yeah.
So that fizzled out after like 3 or 4 sessions because the DM moved, and I don't know, we just whatever. And so... But I was hooked, and I decided that if I wanted to do this, I was probably going to have to be the one to be the dungeon master.
Yeah.
So I got a couple of 4th edition books and sat down and read them and learned them and got some of my friends together. And that same group of friends, we've been playing D&D since 2014. And so we still play today. Same group of friends.
The same crew?
Yep.
So like 6 years, 20,
Wow.
7
Yeah,
years.
It's been a while, and it, off and on, like COVID hit, and we haven't been playing for quite a while because we didn't want to get all together.
Yeah.
But no, we finished our 4th edition campaign, and then 5th edition came out, so we switched over to that, and then it's been a lot of fun.
Man, that's so cool.
What's your favorite of all the editions you played?
Probably 5th edition, because that's the one I'm most familiar with. And I've only really played 2nd edition, 4th, and 5th. I never played 3rd. But I'm recently been getting into the old school Renaissance or old school revival, which is like the BX D&D rules basic expert.
Whoa.
That they have updated to make more sense with now kind of game terminology. So they get rid of Thaco, and it's a rollover system, so it's a little easier to understand. And I've been having a lot of fun with those just because they're so deadly. Like you are like, okay, everybody, like roll up a character. Please come with 3 characters just in case. And you're like,
wow.
oh, okay. And then usually the DM's pretty lenient, like, oh, you died. Oh, look, around the corner, an elf comes. I would like to help you in this fight. And so, but it's just kind of fun because there's a lot of major consequences for your actions. I feel in both 4th edition and 5th edition, it was it was really easy to live, difficult to die. And so the skill, not skill, but just the urgency of like, I got to be careful in this dungeon is kind of gone, I feel, in a lot of 5th edition games. But the counter side to that is the story side of 5th edition is a lot better, I think. And it's fun. Because back in the day, it was just, let's just crawl through a dungeon and see what we find.
Interesting.
Yeah,
I think that I think the RP goes down a little the more the players are worried about surviving, maybe. Like, if you're like, I feel safe, and then it like your higher brain can do some fun stuff instead of like, I'm in partial cover, right? I'm in partial cover. Oh God, please. Like, I think that probably leads to better stories, but that's interesting. I only have experience with 5e D&D, but that seems to be the number one refrain is that the characters are tougher to kill, very survivable, things like that.
So when you're playing 5th edition, do you do anything like how do you run 5th edition then if a desire of yours as a DM is for things to be more dangerous or to feel like to have those consequences?
So for a while I was making monsters have survival rounds rather than hit points, because I would be like, oh, I'm going to give this monster like 150 hit points, and then they would kill it in like one round. And I'm just like, this is ridiculous. Like, this is the boss fight.
And it's so anticlimactic.
Yeah. And so I would be like, okay, he's actually going to survive like 3 rounds or 4 rounds. Or when they do kill him, he actually splits into these other 2 monsters that they have to kill.
Yeah.
Just so, and I guess this is pertinent to my players. You know your players because you play with them.
Yeah.
And I know that if they see like, we'll use a solar Tyrannosaurus Rex. Like if they see that and it's like a single monster, they're probably gonna like, we got to go all out on this thing. And then when it bursts into 20 spiders, and they're just like, well, how tough? Like, we used all of our hard stuff, and it just kind of makes it kind of spooky like that. Nice. I also am a fan of skill challenges, which is something that was introduced in 4th edition, where you just kind of narratively talk about the situation. So before a boss fight, it might be, we're going to do a skill challenge to see if you can catch him, or maybe he is, you have to like defuse a bomb before it goes off. And if you fail the skill challenge, then it really alters that fight. And I might be like, you guys all start this fight with 2 less spell slots or something like that. Like, you lose 2 random spell slots, and that's your punishment for losing the skill challenge.
Man, I use skill challenges a lot in our stream game and on Better Than Heroes, and because it's such a cool, I agree, it's like such a cool way to engage players with the things that they're good at, and that kind of like define their characters while also moving things quickly. And that what you just said is such a good idea, and like as you said that, I like a piece that I've been working on in my brain just clicked into place. So thank you for that. That's such a good it's such a good thing. And if you have, we'll like put a link in the YouTube description down here to Matt Colville's videos because I know you've talked about on that in some of your YouTube videos, because that explains skill challenges really well. I highly recommend it to any DMs watching this, because it's just fun. Like that's good. I like that too, because I feel like it's so important for players to know what they're walking into, or to trick them into what they're walking into. And not like a gotcha way, but more so of like, exactly what you said, if a big boss is scary, like let it be scary. Like let it have that thing to do it. But
so like older D&D or BX, because I've been reading a lot of basic expert stuff, the DM would roll perception checks and stuff. So if you were walking into a dungeon and you're like, what do I see? I would roll your perception, and then I know that you rolled a 1. And so I say, oh, you didn't see anything. But then they don't know if, you rolled high. And so it keeps the player like guessing. Yeah. But nowadays in 5th edition, the player rolls and they roll a natural 20, and it's like, yeah, you don't see anything. We're probably fine. And so they just kind of walk through without being careful. And going back to what you said, but I think the skill challenge reflects that in a way, because you know you failed this challenge.
Yeah.
Like they walk in and they're just like, we failed, but it's not a random roll. It feels like everybody together kind of like, we didn't get there in time and now the bridge is collapsed. So now we have, you know, the aboleth over here that we have to fight, but we also, there's a river of lava. We don't have a bridge. Like, what do we do? And so it adds tension, and the whole game is about tension and solving problems. So
Man, that's smart as hell. That is so smart. Yeah, that's fun. Yeah. So, and then you're also someone who you make these incredible lore videos that just like really succinctly but in depthly talk about the Forgotten Realms, the lore of this huge world that's been, you know, around since almost the beginning of D&D. And how do you feel like that lore interacts with your games now that you've been doing these projects? Like,
oh man, a lot. Like, yeah. And I think because I started the channel because I was looking for something like that, because I didn't know a lot about the Forgotten Realms, and you start looking at it and you're like, this is huge. Like, it just goes on and on and on. And you don't need to know everything or nothing about the realms. Right. You really don't, to just go and play them. You make it your own and it's fine. But I wanted to get a grasp of it. So I started making those videos because I didn't have that resource. But to answer your question, like through making them, I get all kinds of crazy inspired. I remember I was reading all about the Zakara and the Sands in the Al-Qadim setting, which is basically like the Middle East setting that the Forgotten Realms is in. And so it's a continent that's like down to the south of Faerun. And reading that, I was like, oh my gosh, like magic is the same, but it works a little differently. It's all elemental themed and stuff like that. And so I had my players transformed or transplanted to a desert because I wanted to try out all this desert stuff. And so they were like, oh, okay, sure. And so we had this whole like battling an ancient pharaoh, and they were fighting monsters and other spellcasters that were just very different. You know, they would summon blades in their hand out of sand, and then they'd like fight, and they're just like, I want to learn that spell. And it's like, well, you could. And so it was fun. And so I'd say it really influences me a lot, because if I'm running my homebrew campaign, whatever I'm reading, I'm like, oh, that's cool. I want to put that in. And it's always kind of like, you just want to put cool stuff in your game. So you do. Yeah.
That's good. I think that's such a good description of like how to interact with lore too, of like letting it be whatever you want, but also letting it like guide you down the tunnel that you want.
No, and that's the number one compliment I get from the channel is people say, this gave me so many ideas for like this game that I want to run. And I'm like, that's the point. Like, I don't think you should watch my lore channel to say, oh, I can now, you know, run a Netherese game or something. You should be inspired by it and say, I want to incorporate these like flying cut off mountains in the sky, and like that sounds cool. And so
yeah totally. Well, as someone who's done that with your videos, I can say it's a good thing to do.
And it works.
There's a good question in chat that's relevant. Someone wants to know, Wiley Otis, hello Wiley Otis, a regular here in the dungeon, wants to know, what are you reading right now that you're plugging into your game? Is there anything you're diving into?
So I am I guess I could answer a couple things. I'm not running anything right now. I just finished running Rod of Seven Parts, which was on Nerd Immersion's Twitch channel, and you can search that. And that was a lot of fun. That was like a 10-month game. But that was an old 2nd edition module that I adapted into 5th edition. But lately I've been getting into pets. And I think it's because, and so I'm not reading this, but I got a little like Chinese Android emulator toy thing, and I loaded Pokemon on it, and I've been playing Pokemon Emerald, and it's been really fun. And it got me thinking about like Find Familiar and how I'm like, that should be a way better spell than it is. So I've been writing a whole bunch of rules that if you summon an owl, you actually get these benefits. If you have a rat, you get like a lower than a thief lock picking skill, but you still get like a lock picking skill because your rat can get in there and like do stuff. And that's how 4th edition handled familiars. Like, you had these familiars that basically gave you an extra ability, but if they died, then you were kind of doubly hurt. So I've been writing rules for that, and hopefully I can release that on the DM's Guild at some point. I think that would be fun. Nice. And then a friend of mine, and I just have it here, so I'll show you, sent me as I drop things. This is a role-playing game called The Ultraviolet Garden, I think, and the Black City.
Whoa.
And the art is just really cool. And it's a psychedelic metal role-playing game.
Oh wow, that is the music I like.
Speaking Harlan's language.
Well, I highly recommend it. It's super cool. And this is a fun setting in the sense that it is a game, but it's also a campaign setting. And you could easily take this and just run it as a campaign setting. And then if you're familiar with D&D and you want to play D&D, you could use this and play D&D. But I like the idea of Mad Max desert, like, I don't know, just kind of crazy stuff. And your players are like, I don't know, he's got like a laser gun, and how do you deal with that? And I don't know, just fun. So this is what I've been reading lately, and I've actually been writing like a whole, I want to do either using this system or D&D, but like maybe 3 or 4 games with it. I think it'd be a lot of fun. So
nice.
That's
Have
awesome.
you released any of your own games?
What do you mean released?
Like your own tabletop role-playing game systems?
I haven't written any systems, no, but I wrote a one-shot called Dragon on the Mount. And that was because I had a lot of people asking me, like, where do I start? I want to be a DM, but I don't know what to start. What do I do? So I wrote a one-shot called Dragon on the Mount and put it on the DM's Guild for $1. I was just like, whatever. And it still sells pretty good. It's kind of fun. Like you make like 50 cents a copy or something, but like every month I'm like, oh, I've got like extra money, which really all of that money in the DM's Guild allows me to buy more Forgotten Realms supplements so I can research things. So it's kind of nice. But that is, speaking of skill challenges, that has all of my rules for skill challenges in it. Because when I wrote that, I wanted to say, what are the core parts of a game for me? So if you're a brand new player or a brand new dungeon master, how would I approach this? So there's a skill challenge. There is a like fight, and then interacting with the town to try and figure out like what happened, and then a dungeon crawl and a boss fight. So it has all of these little components in it. And yeah, so you can check that out on the DM's Guild. Either search Jordan with a PH or Dragon on the Mount. I think it'll pop up.
Sick.
Nice.
Yeah. I'll find it. I'll link it. I'll put it below. Go if you're on YouTube. If you're watching this on YouTube right now, it's down there. Do it.
And it's $1. So yeah, and people say it's worth $1. So like, you're not losing money.
Let's
cool.
who tell us who.
Yeah.
We have some questions for him. Yeah.
So Harlan thinks that they're going to re-release Spelljammer up in the future. I was just curious what you think. If Spelljammer will be coming back, in an upcoming setting.
I don't know. I want it to, because I think Spelljammer is a lot of fun. And I mostly just want to get away from the Sword Coast and Forgotten Realms, because they've just been doing adventure after adventure there. And Avernus was kind of cool because we went somewhere else. And I'm like, okay, I can do that. And I liked Chult because we went kind of somewhere else. But for the most part, I don't think Spelljammer will pop up. I want it to, but I don't think so. Mostly because I think it was Chris Perkins said in an interview that they don't want to publish something that is already available. And so if you want the setting of Spelljammer, you don't necessarily need them to make a 5e Spelljammer.
Yeah.
Now, if they wanted to create a story that involved Spelljammer, they might like do that, and it'll incorporate the rules of Spelljammer kind of within the setting. And that's exactly what they did for Chult, which was or Tomb of Annihilation, which was a hex crawl, and they hadn't introduced that mechanic necessarily. It was in the Dungeon Master's Guide, but like here's how you utilize this mechanic. And so a lot of their quote campaign settings and stuff are more like, how do you utilize this mechanic? The Magic the Gathering ones are the same thing, where you can have like group patrons and things like that, working for an organization. But I personally think that the Magic the Gathering heavily outsells D&D, and so anytime they can like cross that over, they're pulling in Magic the Gathering people to D&D. as opposed to the other way.
Yeah.
So Spelljammer was so niche when it came out. Like people liked it, and it has a hardcore fan base, but like it's not. I don't see a lot of people running to buy that book, despite my love of it.
You're breaking my heart, Jordan.
I know,
Come
I'm
on,
sorry.
man.
I'm sorry.
We had you on the show, man.
Yeah.
Oh.
And I was so happy. Especially
No,
after
no.
researching it, I was like, this is a fun setting.
Yeah.
And like the idea of just getting lost in space and running around, like it's really cool. So.
Yeah, and I fully agree with you. I think that my guess, I'm calling it here. I've said it in our Discord. I'll say it here. I think they're going to put out an astral plane adventure where you go to the astral plane. I think the way that you're going to get there is through the Spelljammer mechanic. Because you're right, like that, like
But they've dropped all these hints, like a little bit of spoilers. But in a couple, 2 or 3 of the other adventures, there's little
Dungeon of the Mad
Nautiloid ships and things like that. And then Baldur's Gate 3, the video game, had a big Nautiloid ship. So they don't mind pulling that as a resource to tell a story. But as far as making that or a Dark Sun book or any of the other settings, a lot of people on my channel want me to. They're like, they need to bring back Greyhawk.
Yeah.
I'm like, Greyhawk's a fine setting. Oh, my son is very messy.
Oh no! Hello, son.
He tried to eat with a spoon tonight. So,
Nice.
But but Greyhawk is too similar to the Forgotten Realms, whereas like Ravnica was very different from the realms, and Theros very different from the realms, and those are the Magic the Gathering settings that they were like, but more so those were, here are some themed monsters and a new mechanic to try out to make it feel like ancient Greece. Rather than like the older campaign settings where they're like, here's this character and here's that. So like Ravenloft has a bigger fan base than Spelljammer. And I think they would double down on doing a Ravenloft campaign setting as opposed to an adventure in Ravenloft. So
somebody was on here was talking about how well vampire stuff still sells. Just like I can't remember. Never mind. But like I feel like any vampire theme stuff has a huge fan base. So you're right. I'm not giving up, Jordan. I don't care what you say. I don't care how many answers to D&D you've given me so far in my life. And you also just got done with this huge project that was amazing. You were both extremely productive over a holiday break, which, hats off right there. And also just super committed to this like big undertaking of putting out a new video for 30 days, right? And like making your own campaign setting.
So they had a big thing on YouTube in general is Vlogmas, and that's mostly the vlogging channels where it's like I'm gonna do a vlog every day for the month of December.
Oh boy.
And I was toying with that idea, but I also was thinking, well, why don't I turn it into a challenge that I want to do? So random Googling, I found a November writer challenge for books on how to create a fantasy world. And then Absolute Tabletop, which is they make 5e supplements and other games, other role-playing games. They had a 30-question challenge, and you answer a question a day about your campaign setting. And so I've never made a campaign setting. I've always kind of played in my weird Forgotten Realms that I've created. And I was like, no, I want to create one from scratch. So for the month of December, I did my 30-day world challenge where we did that. And so every day I answered a question and kind of built out the world as I go. And that was more just like a personal challenge because it was something I wanted to do. And I knew that if I tied it to releasing a video every day, then I would get it done, as opposed to like, oh, I'm too busy or I'm too tired or something like that. So that was fun. And
That's
so
cool.
my world's called Endagar, and it's kind of a fun fantasy thing. And there's lots of cool things to think about. Like, are you in touch with the planes, and do elves and dwarves like each other in this one? Or so
that's
awesome.
Yeah, that's so cool. It's hard to do that, and I feel like having that guide and that list is useful. We've been talking. Our goal this year, right? Correct me if I'm wrong, Andrew, if I just made this up and we're letting it go. But our goal this year as this channel, is to get better at finishing things. Because
finish one thing, yes.
I feel like we've talked to people about it before, and like, how do you finish a project? And everyone's kind of been like, we all struggle with it. So, but
I 100% agree. I have like, because you get excited about something and you work on it really, really hard, and then but then you get excited about something else, and then all of a sudden it's like, what was I doing with that project? And like that is me to a T. So
it's so hard to come back to too, especially when you're like, this is like 60% finished and I'm just not into it anymore.
Right.
But
it's not the fun stuff either. It's like
Yeah.
that 40%. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
scheduling time I feel is good, and so I try to schedule like 40 minutes after my lunch, where I can just be alone and type, and that might be a game prep, or that might be a lot of different things, but it's nice to schedule time, and then you're like, I have nothing else to do other than finish this. I guess I'll work on this silly project. So
there we go, folks. We're one
That is
step
a good-
closer to being able to finish things. Scheduling time.
scheduling time. I mean, just wait till you're bored on social media and then start writing.
Turning your phone off. That's another pro tip. Pro Jordan tip. There you go.
Man. But Andrew did finish something. I want to shout him out real quick because
But it's not. Let's not doing it because it's not available yet. It's in the layout phase. I hired
the cats and dogs.
our friend Rachel Weeks. Yeah, she's doing the layout on it. So
All
I
right.
can't say it's finished because it's not available.
Okay, not yet.
But
See,
it is.
You're getting
The
there.
layout is being done on it. So
Where
it
will
is
this
right
be
around the
available
corner.
when it is available?
I was gonna put on Drive Through RPG
Okay.
just for donation only. But yeah, it's a RPG where the players are stray cats and dogs, and I designed it because I run the RPG club at my daughter's school, and it was an undying nightmare to try to play D&D with these kids who had never played it over Zoom, where I'd be like, okay, I painstakingly walked you through creating your character sheet. It took literally a day and a half of work between the two of us, and it still wouldn't be right. Like, I'd be like, no, you definitely did not write that. So I created this game where it was just all about like, hey, this could not be easier. Let's make your character. It'll take about 60 seconds, and then we're playing, boom,
Nice.
and having fun. And it's a big hit on RPG Club, and the kids run the games, which is even better. So it's cool to see kids running games for other kids, and I think it's my daughter likes D&D too, and she can run games. They're insane, but she does it. But I think this is a cool maybe stepping stone, like a more manageable level of role-playing game, just to get your head around. But it should be out soon. Hopefully next episode of the dungeon it'll be out.
Not to minimize the amount, because that's really cool that you made a whole game system, because that's a goal of mine also, is I want to, because I think a lot of people who are into RPGs, there's always this point where you kind of pick apart the rules and you're like, what if I just Frankenstein this? I've always wanted this, and you build it up yourself. But there's a fun system called Tiny Dungeons that uses the tiny D6 system. So there's tiny superheroes and tiny this, and you just use D6s, and it's really fun.
Nice.
And it's really easy. And so I think that could be good for the situation that you're in. So
That's
Tiny
good.
Dungeon.
That's
I'll
cool.
check that out.
It's good to have games that change out.
I'm just fascinated by other game systems and what works, what doesn't, those game engines. But we're almost out of time. We have a roll table that we can hit. If you can roll a D20 and we'll take a question off it. Yeah.
Yeah. We have our random roll chart.
That's a 10.
10, right?
A
in the
10.
middle. All right, here we go.
All right. Oh, okay. What is some of your favorite music for when you're either running a game, I guess back when we would do that in person and play music, or just working on a game? Like what?
I don't like lyrics. So if I'm writing or reading or trying to focus on something, if the lyrics are there, that's all I can hear. And then I'm trying to read, but I can't because I keep seeing the words and it bothers me. So I do a lot of post-rock stuff. And I'm trying to think, Explosions in the Sky is the one that I think I go to the most. I love them. So
yeah, totally.
They're really great.
Yeah,
so I listen to a lot of that. As far as running games, it's usually I have a couple of YouTube playlists that I keep in my pocket that I think I just Googled epic fight music one day and found a huge playlist, and I saved a bunch of videos. And so I kind of just have that on repeat in a way. Which is sad that you can't use that when you're online.
Yeah.
Because I because of COVID and the birth of my son, I've been playing mostly online, and not having the background music I find is really lacking. It's kind of oh, that's sad that we can't have this.
It's tough. I agree. I'm such a...
Yeah, you have the amazing guy that's just improvising the music, right? Because that added so much when we were playing. I was like, this is really cool.
We are so lucky to have Jason Wardell. He might be in the chat. He often comes to the dungeon and hangs out with us because
that's Wiley Otis.
Yeah.
That's what that is.
Oh, that is? I always forget. Okay. Well, that's Jason.
That's
Jason
him.
asked that question.
Fantastic. Good job.
Yeah, because his username is different somewhere else. But yeah, he's hi Jason. Thanks for hanging out. He was a guest on here, and he just told us about being able to play over remotely. Like he would just play on a synth while he was playing, and we were like, "Please do for us, yes, please." It's
the Dragon Friends do that. They have their podcast, but they perform on a stage, and the music adds to it a whole bunch. So their musicians live on the stage playing with them. And like, dealing. And I was like, man, if I ever do, because for a while I wanted to do a local D&D game on a stage, and we were going to like rent a warehouse or something and be like, hey nerds, come watch us play D&D. Mm-hmm. We don't play online. Get your Twitches out of your pocket. We're coming over here to the warehouse. But that didn't work out. But I was like, one of the key things is about, I need an improvised an improv musician who can sit there and like play with you and follow along. So
I know I'm someone who I just like, I need it. I need that tone. I switch types of music when I'm trying to write different places and stuff, because I don't know. I'm totally with you with like, I can't have lyrics, but I need that like mindset to kind of just like get everything to go away.
Totally.
Yeah. A friend of mine wrote a supplement that he added, or he did a whole track of music along with it. You can, when you buy this supplement, it also, here's the music I wrote to go with it. So you can kind of get in the same mindset that he was in when he wrote it. I was like, that's cool.
Well,
but I don't have those skills. Not a musical person.
Sounds like another project I want to start and try and finish, Jason. So let's do it. We'll figure out a way to finish it. Well, Jordan, thank you so much for coming to hang out with us.
Thanks for having me.
Please go ahead and, if you are watching this, give Jordan a follow. If you have not already, check out his YouTube channel. We will drop links to it right here below. And it's JORPHDAN on Twitter, right?
Check out Dragon on the Mount.
Dragon on the Mount,
It's fun. It's a fun little adventure. And so it's pushing 3 years old, maybe. Yeah. But I like it. I've ran it like several times because I wrote it. But
yeah, that's cool. That's awesome. And yeah, thanks so much for coming and talking and hanging out with us.
Anytime.
If you are watching this and you've never watched this before, this is The Dungeon. We have guests on every week to talk about the art of mastering game mastering. I always say that weird. And we also have a stream on Monday nights at 7 o'clock Pacific time that is called Better Than Heroes, where we run a Spelljammer-influenced game in 5th edition. That's live every Monday. We have a soundtrack that we've been talking about.
So good. It is so good. Such an improvement on the game. I love it.
And do you have anything else you want to throw out there for folks to go check out, Jordan?
I guess, well, I got the YouTube channel, and I'm Jordan with a PH on all the social media, so you can find me on Instagram and see pictures of my cat and things like that. But the only other thing I do is I also do a podcast, and we record live on Saturday mornings, and it's the Saturday Morning D&D Show. And we also just talk about D&D, news in the industry, games we like, and then the mistakes that we have made as Dungeon Masters that help you kind of go forward. So like learning mistakes, like, I feel like the module told me to do this, but then, my players set that person on fire. So we adapted. And I think it's been a fun podcast just for a learning thing, but also so other people know that you're not the only one out there that are just like, I don't know what my players are doing right now. Like, this is crazy. Good. So if you search Saturday Morning D&D Show, you will find that.
Cool. Yeah, I'm going to check that out because that sounds like such a fun...
You on. We have guests occasionally as well, so...
Look, I've made a lot of mistakes, so we can talk about it a lot. Yeah. Great. All right. Well, thank you all so much for hanging out with us, and we'll see you next week. And don't forget...
See you next episode.
Don't forget.
Tip your DM.
Tip your DM. All right. See you, everybody.
I don't think it's catching on.
It's going to catch on, Andrew.
Stop trying to make Tip Your DM work.
I'm sorry.